What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and today in a very, very big live stream, I think over 100,000 people live watching concurrently, Steven Crowder decided to call out by name several prominent people in our sphere. I won't say on the right. I don't really know how everyone personally identifies, but Candace, Owens, Ian Carroll, Tucker Carlson, all, at least Candace and Tucker would probably say they're conservative. I don't know so much about Ian Carroll. He decided to call some people out directly over what he calls essentially algorithmic driven lying. And first and foremost, I need to acknowledge my part in this. I have been too hyperbolic with my titles and thumbnails, in particular when it comes to something important like a war. It's less important when it's Brie Larson's weird feet or something like that. And so for my part in this, I do apologize. And if you've seen my titles and thumbnails lately, I hope you've seen, by lately, I mean like the last 2 days, I hope you've seen a change. And because I've acknowledged that as well, I wanted to look at a couple of his major callouts here and try to give people some benefit of the doubt. I get in a lot of hot water because I continually do this. You could call me naive. You can leave a like on the video right now. One like equals one, you're naive. I like to try and take people at face value. I don't automatically think someone's on the payroll just because they say something I disagree with. There's been a lot of accusations of that, with calling Tucker Carlson Qatar funded. Same with Candace Owens, or this person's funded by by Israel. That person's, I've seen no evidence of that. In fact, I've seen direct evidence contradicting that. But I do think, and I have learned through my own process here, that fomenting panic is not worth the clicks. And I'm not saying that's what's driven these people to do that, but I have seen a lot of hyperbole. It's either World War III or the war is good. World War III bad, World War III good, when the real situation is far different.
To die for Israel, then you are.
Here's
false flag, psyop, for the Jews, for Israel. Use them interchangeably. Let's go through a few examples, because right now we find ourselves at a point where war has been averted, ceasefire, and Donald Trump.
Hopefully. Now, if you're Dave Smith, you say that Trump using those bunker busters was in fact war. I don't see it that way. Those are more targeted strikes, but you could argue that they are acts of war, I think. But I do think there was a lot of hyperbole and a lot of blackpilling going on. But I also think it's totally warranted, because most of the people that were freaking out were around for WMDs. Now, obviously, I have said specifically, I think calling Trump, Bush Jr. was a bridge too far. But I think that a lot of why people were so hyperbolic and so frantic is because of what happened with Iraq and Afghanistan.
Is in our camp. Just to be clear, too, I can't think of a president more in my camp. So what Donald Trump is saying is, you shouldn't have a nuke. I've been clear about that. Israel, you have a right to exist, but Jews, you are annoying me. And that's where I am. Don't shit test me. It's a good thing. I'm glad he's in that camp. Let's go through the examples. Candace Owens said over and over again that President Trump would send you to die for Israel, for the Jews. I'm reading her actual ex-post. Get ready, white American men. It's time for you to go die for Israel again. If you don't want to die for Israel, then you are an anti-Semite. Sign up to die in Iran for Netanyahu today, or just admit you hate Jews. Here's another one.
Again, I think that post is hyperbolic. I think it's meant to make a point. I think it's meant to, elicit a response. It's meant to be clickbait. I don't know if Candace actually believed that, although I tend to believe, based on some of her coverage that she may believe that. It is an obvious fear that people had, but I do think it was a little frustrating that people pretended that, Trump was the same thing as Bush Jr.
They tried to redefine anti-Semitism, criminalize criticism of Israel on college campuses. Not true. Most crucially, seed the idea.
Well, they kind of did. Again, this is just using hyperbole. They didn't want these blockades on campuses of people who were, free Palestine people. Having an opinion about Israel-Palestine was not criminalized, at least as far as I know.
The idea that the declaration of Christ as our king amounted to hatred against Jews. Also not accurate. All of this was done in preparation for the Greater Israel agenda, regarding which they attempted to emotionally manipulate Americans to accept. The conspiracy theorists were right again. It was always about a planned war with Iran and a doomed heretical belief that
Now, a lot of the dunks that Crowder gets here are because he now has, he has the power of Captain Hindsight. We now know that this war did not happen, at least as of 12:06 p.m. on June 24th. It's easy to go back and say, hey, you look a little crazy here. It didn't get out of control. But also, I think it's fair to call out, and again, I'm including my own coverage of this, and I've got to be better. But it's fair to call out Candace basically, stating as fact that this war was going to happen. Let's not forget, too, that she also, she called America a colony of Israel. Your politicians are bought and paid for. Well, I mean, many politicians are bought and paid for. But she also did happily tell soldiers to defect. Again,
for the interests of a certain foreign nation benefit. I love this question. I do believe that if war in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so, get dishonorably discharged. Who cares?
Who just ruin your life? I mean, I guess, being dishonorably discharged maybe wouldn't destroy your life, but it certainly would throw away your entire military career. It would throw away probably your veterans insurance, any, money you were set to earn or owed. I think that's really easy to say when you do what I do or what Candace does, is sit around on a desk and be a pundit. I don't think this advice aged very well. I think what she's trying to say, obviously, is, hey, you shouldn't have to go fight and lose your life over some foreign war that has nothing to do with America. That I agree with. I would probably not go say, hey, go get...
Why should you go die in a foreign land? You now have the benefit of 2020. You can think about those men and those women who died because they were pitched that they were serving their country because there were weapons of mass destruction, right?
2020.
They were serving their country because the Taliban, they were serving their country, whatever.
2020. Oh, you mean 2020 vision?
And these people
hindsight?
gave up their lives. And ask yourselves, for what?
Yeah, desert for a war that's not even happening. And here's the thing. Yeah, I get it. X isn't real life. But it turns into real life if people believe it. And some soldiers, I guarantee you, believed it. Some soldiers still fell for it.
I mean, I think that there is a responsibility. Then he goes after Tucker.
Campaign against Iran will set off a war, and it will be America's war. Don't let the propagandists lie to you. Don't let the propagandists lie to you. Like us. Like the president who said, we're not going into war. We are going to make sure that they don't have nuclear capabilities. We have no interest in regime change. We've always had an interest in ensuring that.
Now, again, to be fair, to represent both sides here, a lot of people are remembering Iraq and, as a public, the lies that we were told. The study that showed, Americans would support wars if you use the word nuclear as opposed to liberating people. These are all, I think, valid reasons for people to be concerned. But as a pundit, as Tucker saying, it's worth pointing out that a strike on Iranian nuclear sites will almost certainly result in thousands of American deaths at bases throughout the Middle East. Again, he said this on March 17th. Now, he was wrong. That strike happened and Americans lost no lives. But I do think that, he said almost certainly. And he probably, didn't knowingly lie, right? He was just wrong. And people get it wrong all the time. I get it wrong all the time too. And I think that, maybe perhaps to a bigger extent, yeah, sure, this didn't happen, but that should be a good thing. There's all these crazy things that say well, Trump knew that the the attack was going to happen and this, that, and the other thing. Obviously, we have the classic Dave Smith saying that Trump should be impeached and removed, which is insane.
Either way, Trump has betrayed MAGA and every principle of America first. He is no longer worthy of any of our support. He probably never was. So sources, Netanyahu and Trump, we knew about it. We were involved in this. Weave it all together, and this was all an excuse for us to go to a perpetual war with Iran. He also said with the utmost certainty that, and it almost sounds like at a certain point you just don't want the United States to ever have any good days, that we did not have, quote, escalation dominance against Iran. And again, Trump should be impeached.
It was in 2007 that the Pentagon impeached and removed for this one.
I mean, again, I think that people had a right to be very concerned, and I think some people probably oversold it, myself included. I look back at the World War III starts now titles. I'm embarrassed. Do I think that Dave Smith believed at the time that Trump should be impeached and removed? Yeah, I do think so. Maybe he was in his feelings a little bit too much. You know, Tucker, whom I largely trust and almost completely. And Candace Owens, obviously, who, again, I think as content creators, if you're going to cover this stuff, you know, I don't put myself on the same level as Tucker, Crowder, or Dave Smith in terms of geopolitical knowledge, but I know more than all of them about YouTube. And I know more about the algorithm. And I do know the race to get, you know, mind share is addicting.
Same for Iran now. So Iran's nuclear program, the idea that they have one, the idea that they were enriching uranium, was a psyop.
This is Ian
Who
Carroll.
I believe works with Candace as well. He put this out there. Again, anyone who said false flag or psyop, the only way that works is if there's World War III. Accountability matters. This, quote, stopping Iran from getting a nuke narrative is propaganda cooked up by Israel, the nation that stole its nuclear weapons.
I mean, look, I think that Israel should allow inspection of their facilities. And I think the American people should know more about Iran's uranium enrichment. My biggest thing, what I saw as the biggest problem on X, and I'll wrap this up, is that so many people, Ian, Candace, Tucker, a lot of people were always claiming quote unquote sources, anonymous sources. And I do think that anonymous sources are good, but I also think that sometimes people can use that terminology to add a certain level of credibility to a post that they've literally made up out of thin air.
Tech hasn't signed the treaties and doesn't allow inspections. Well, it didn't sign the treaties, doesn't allow inspections. That part is true. Put in a little bit of truth. And then you believe the rest. It's propaganda cooked up by Israel. Leading into the war in Iraq, there wasn't enough support for the war, so they created the anthrax hoax with anthrax that was eventually traced to a CIA lab in order to manufacture more consent. Watch for a false flag to do the same for Iran now. So Iran's nuclear program...
Again, I think it's fine to tell people to be on the lookout for potential misinformation, false flags, which have happened before. But I also think that it was way too easy to get lost in the sauce. There was a time where I was just off X because it got so annoying where it was like, sources, this happened. Sources, this didn't happen. I think we all need to do a better job, myself included, at trying to remain calm, and we need to get better. I need to get better. I can't speak to everyone else because they might think they're totally correct. At really trying to frame stuff as, hey, look, we don't know for a fact right now. And I think that's what we owe our audiences. I hope you're informed by this video. If you were, please do leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, subscribe or follow down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.